Miguel Shadow Ramirez, Tyrone Blade Johnson, and Daniel Ghost Alvarez, three names whispered in fear across American streets. Each man rose from poverty to power, leaving behind a trail of blood, betrayal, and broken families. Their stories are not just about crime, but about empires built in the dark, empires that still haunt neighborhoods long after the men themselves are gone. This is the world of America's most feared gangs, where loyalty is a weapon, betrayal is a death sentence, and fear itself is the only law that matters. The streets of America have always carried stories of struggle, but in certain neighborhoods, those struggles grew into something darker, something that fed on fear and silence. Walking down these blocks meant more than cracked sidewalks and abandoned houses. It meant entering territories claimed by invisible lines drawn by the most feared gangs. Their power was not marked by neon signs or billboards, but by the quiet tension that wrapped itself around the air, the way residents lowered their eyes, the way children learned early which corners to avoid. In these areas, even the walls seemed alive, painted with graffiti that was less about art and more about ownership, warnings and threats. Every symbol declared who ruled the block, and every symbol dared rivals to cross the boundary. These gangs were not just groups of criminals, they were forces that bent the rhythm of daily life. For many who lived there, the rules were simple but brutal: stay quiet, don't ask questions, and never get in the way. Those who tried to fight back rarely lasted long. The gangs thrived in the shadows of broken systems. Schools that had lost funding, jobs that never came back, promises from politicians that turned to dust. Into this vacuum, gangs offered something the streets could not: protection, identity, and power. But protection came with a price, and the price was submission. Entire neighborhoods became unwilling extensions of their empire. Shopkeepers paid for safety, teenagers carried messages, and even families who wanted no part of it were forced to live by their rule. The power of these gangs stretched beyond simple intimidation. They created a culture of fear so deeply woven into daily life that it became normal. Sirens at night blended with laughter from street corners, and no one dared to separate the two. Mothers warned their children not about fairy tales but about the men who lingered near alleyways. Those who joined the gangs often came from households crushed by poverty or violence. For them, the gang was less a choice and more a trap disguised as salvation. Once pulled inside, they were given a family, but one that demanded blood loyalty. Outsiders looked at these neighborhoods and saw danger, but for those within, the gangs were the air they breathed, impossible to escape and harder to ignore. The streets themselves told the stories of what happened to those who crossed the wrong path. Burned-out cars became silent markers of past wars, and candlelit vigils stood on corners where lives had been cut short. Every crime, every death, every whispered story added to the legend of these groups. Over time, fear became their greatest weapon. It spread faster than bullets, more lasting than scars. People feared not only what the gangs could do, but what they might do, and that uncertainty was enough to keep entire neighborhoods under control. Yet beneath the fear, there was always a hidden tension, a question that lingered in the air. How did they gain so much power? The answer lay in the streets themselves. Abandoned houses became meeting points. Empty lots became battlefields. Schools that should have been safe turned into recruiting grounds. Every broken piece of the community was transformed into an advantage for the gang. They thrived in decay, and as the city crumbled around them, their influence only grew stronger. For outsiders, these places looked like war zones, but for those inside, they were home, reshaped by an unspoken rule. Survival came only through submission or allegiance. In this world, the gangs were not just feared, they were inevitable, woven into the very fabric of the streets, and it was this inevitability that made them so terrifying. Fear was not just something they inspired, it was something they owned, something they turned into a currency more powerful than money, and something that ensured their shadows stretched far beyond the blocks they claimed. Every feared gang draws its strength from loyalty, and that loyalty is not freely given but carved out through rituals designed to bind members together forever. For those who stand on the outside, the initiation seems brutal, almost senseless, but inside the world of gangs it is the first step into a life where fear and brotherhood exist, side by side. Young recruits are often tested in ways that scar them for life. Some are forced to prove themselves through acts of violence, chosen not for necessity but for the weight of the blood it spills. Others must endure beatings that last until they collapse, their survival a sign of endurance, their broken bodies a badge of belonging. To pass these trials means to prove that one is willing to suffer, to risk everything, to show no weakness in front of those already bound by the code. Once inside, the promise of brotherhood takes hold. Members are told they are part of something larger, something stronger than family, something that cannot be abandoned. They wear tattoos like armor, symbols etched into their skin that speak louder than words. Every mark tells a story, every scar is a reminder, and every gesture between them reinforces the bond. On the streets, they walk with a confidence born from the knowledge that their brothers will stand beside them in any fight, that betrayal is punished swiftly, and that loyalty is rewarded with protection. But the same bond that offers safety also becomes a chain. There is no such thing as leaving. Those who try to escape often find the consequences waiting not only for themselves, but for those they love most. The gangs thrive on this system because it creates a loyalty deeper than fear of prison, deeper even than fear of death. It is the kind of loyalty built on shared blood, shared crimes, and shared silence. Members carry secrets so heavy that even if they wanted to confess, the cost of speaking would outweigh the weight of guilt. They know that once a crime is committed together, it becomes a thread tying them all to one another, a thread that cannot be broken without tearing everything apart. These oaths are unspoken contracts, binding promises that ensure survival of the group even in the face of constant pressure from rivals and police. What makes this bond so dangerous is that it offers a sense of belonging in places where belonging is scarce. Many recruits come from broken families, unstable homes, and lives filled with rejection. For them, the gang becomes a replacement, offering love disguised as control, protection disguised as violence. The brotherhood they enter feels unshakable because it fills a hole that has been empty for so long. In this way, gangs are not only built on crime but on human need, manipulating loyalty out of desperation. That loyalty, once taken, is turned into a weapon, making each member both victim and soldier in a war that never ends. Over time, these bonds twist into something even darker. Members who have lived in the life for years no longer see themselves as individuals, but as part of a collective identity. Their personal choices vanish, replaced by the code of the gang. If one is threatened, all are threatened. If one is betrayed, all demand revenge. In this way, gangs function like a single organism, with each member a limb, each decision guided by survival of the whole. For outsiders, this unity appears terrifying, because it means fighting one member is like fighting an entire army, an army built not on formal rules, but on unshakable oaths. The tragedy is that these oaths are built to last longer than any individual life. They follow members into prison, into exile, and sometimes even into death. To wear the mark of a feared gang is to carry its legacy until the end, a constant reminder that leaving is impossible, that brotherhood is both salvation and curse. For those who enter, the choice is final, and for those who watch from the outside, it is a chilling reminder of how powerful the promise of belonging can be when it is bound in blood and sealed in fear. The strength of the most feared gangs did not come from raw violence alone, it came from the business they built in the shadows, a business that transformed them from street thugs into underground empire. What appeared on the surface as scattered crimes and chaotic shootings was in reality part of a larger, carefully planned system designed to feed money and power back into the gang. Drugs were their lifeblood, moving across city lines, state borders, and sometimes even international. Packages were smuggled through highways, hidden compartments, and ordinary-looking vehicles. Safe houses were scattered in quiet neighborhoods, places where outsiders never suspected that millions of dollars worth of contraband passed through. Each deal, each shipment, was another brick in a fortress that the law struggled to bring down. But it was not only drugs that kept these groups alive. Illegal weapons flowed just as freely, traded in alleys and basements, then unleashed on rivals or sold to desperate buyers who knew no other way to arm themselves. Every gun carried more than bullets. It carried fear, control, and leverage. In some cities, the gangs owned the night not because of their numbers but because of the arsenal hidden in their hands. The weapons allowed them to enforce their rules, to silence witnesses, and to ensure that no challenge went unanswered. To the outside world, the violence seemed random, but within the gang it was often strategic. Each attack meant to protect their income and expand their reach. Money became the true measure of their strength. Every dollar earned from illegal trade was funneled back into the organization. Some of it paid lawyers to keep their leaders out of prison, some bought silence from officials willing to look the other way, and some funded lavish lifestyles that made them appear untouchable. In neighborhoods under their control, they even played the role of provider. They handed out cash to struggling families, funded local events, and at times acted like rulers who cared for their people. This mix of fear and financial support blurred the line between oppressors and protectors, making it difficult for communities to resist them. To many residents, it felt safer to cooperate with the gang than to rely on authorities who rarely delivered real change. The most dangerous part of their business was its ability to hide in plain sight, Some leaders avoided flashy violence and instead ran their gangs like corporations. They had accountants who laundered money through local businesses, restaurants, and construction firms. They used coded phones, burner devices, and trusted couriers who never spoke more than necessary. Their meetings happened in quiet rooms, not smoky bars, and their plans stretched months or even years ahead. This transformation from street crime to organized crime made them harder to track and nearly impossible to eliminate. Every time one branch of their operation was cut down, another grew quietly elsewhere. Corruption added another layer of protection. In certain cases, city councils and law enforcement were not just fighting gangs, but battling their own. A single envelope filled with cash could mean a raid delayed, an investigation buried, or a rival tipped off. For the gangs, buying influence was often easier than facing it. Corruption did not just protect them, it gave them legitimacy in the eyes of those who saw powerful men and women bowing to their will. This merging of crime and authority made them more terrifying than any weapon, because it meant the very systems built to stop them could no longer be trusted. Behind every act of chaos, there was order. Behind every street fight, there was profit. While the public saw fear, the gangs saw opportunity. Their business thrived not because of chance, but because of careful planning, unshakable loyalty, and a ruthless ability to adapt. They turned broken cities into their markets, desperation into demand, and fear into the most profitable commodity of all. And as long as the money kept flowing, the business of crime ensured that their power would never fade, but only shift, expand, and grow stronger in ways the outside world would never fully see until it was far too late. Betrayal has always been the poison that seeps through the cracks of even the most feared gangs, and while outsiders often imagine the biggest threats come from rival groups or relentless law enforcement, the truth is far more unsettling. The deadliest blows often come from within. Every gang is built on oaths of loyalty, but loyalty is fragile when tested by greed, fear, or the promise of freedom. Members who once swore to defend their brothers with blood can suddenly turn into the very people who dismantle everything from the inside. The reasons vary. Some are worn down by years of violence, others are tempted by the chance to escape prison sentences, and a few simply crave the power that comes with cutting out their rivals. No matter the motive, betrayal reshapes the gang from the core, often leaving more devastation than any outside war could. When betrayals happen, they rarely unfold in silence. A leader who rises too quickly can find his closest allies turning against him, whispering lies, and spreading rumors that slowly fracture trust. Paranoia creeps in, and suspicion becomes a permanent companion. Meetings grow tense, with every glance and pause filled with hidden meaning. In some gangs, the fear of betrayal is so powerful that leaders test their members constantly, setting traps to expose traitors before they can strike. But no amount of caution can stop what is destined to come. The most dangerous traitor is the one who smiles, fights, and bleeds alongside the gang, only to use that trust as a weapon. Some betrayals are born not of ambition but of desperation. Law enforcement often exploits this weakness, cornering members with the choice between years behind bars or turning informant. The pressure of facing life sentences, separation from family, or the looming threat of death inside prison walls can break even the hardest. Those who give in often wear wires, leak meeting spots, or reveal details about smuggling routes. Entire networks collapse in a single night because of one whispered confession in a dimly lit interrogation room. For the gangs, the damage is catastrophic, but the betrayal goes beyond logistics. It cuts into the heart of the brotherhood, reminding every member that no oath is unbreakable, no loyalty eternal. Revenge, however, is never delayed. When betrayal is uncovered, the punishment is designed to be remembered. Some traitors vanish without a trace, their names spoken only in warning. Others are made examples of, their bodies left in places where everyone can see what happens to those who dare turn their backs. The cruelty is not just punishment but strategy, a message to anyone considering the same path. Families of traitors often suffer as well, caught in the storm of vengeance, proving that betrayal is not only personal but generational. Forgiveness does not exist in this world. The stain of disloyalty is permanent, and the price is always blood. The most tragic part of betrayal is its ripple effect. Once trust is broken, it can never fully return. Leaders who once relied on instinct now second-guess every decision. Members who once stood side by side begin to wonder if the man next to them is secretly plotting their downfall. This constant tension erodes the foundation of the gang, weakening it even if no further betrayals occur. Fear becomes inward rather than outward, and the gang begins to devour itself from within. Some of the most powerful gangs in history collapsed not because of rival bullets, but because of fractured loyalty and the silent daggers of betrayal. And yet betrayal never truly destroys them all. What survives often emerges harder, sharper, and cold. Those who remain learn to be more cautious, more ruthless, and less trusting. They tighten their circles, demand harsher loyalty tests, and strip away weakness with merciless precision. Betrayal, while devastating, also becomes part of the story, a constant shadow that ensures only the most brutal and unshakable members remain. For outsiders, this cycle is terrifying, because it means that every collapse births a stronger, more suspicious, and more dangerous version of the gang that fell. In the end, betrayal is both the downfall and the evolution of these feared groups, a twisted balance that keeps them alive even as they tear themselves apart from within. The legacy of the most feared gangs lingers long after the sirens fade and the arrests are made, a shadow that stretches across generations and neighborhoods. Even when leaders are locked away and crews are scattered by raids, the memory of what they built remains carved into the streets, like scars that never fully heal. Abandoned houses that once served as safe havens for deals stand as silent monuments to the lives destroyed within their walls. Corners marked by graffiti tell stories of wars fought years before, symbols layered over one another in an endless battle for dominance. These places become reminders of power, violence, and fear that no amount of urban renewal can completely erase. For the people who grew up under their rule, the past is never truly past. It lives in the choices they make and the fears they still carry. Families remain the first to feel the weight of this legacy. Children born to members often inherit not just a name but the burden of a reputation. Schools and employers see them as trouble before they even speak. Neighbors whisper and law enforcement watches closely. Many of them grow up believing their path is already written, that they are destined to follow the same road paved by blood and loyalty. For some, the gang becomes a legacy passed down like an inheritance, a twisted form of tradition, where fathers, sons, and even grandsons wear the same marks, pledge the same oaths, and repeat the same cycle. Breaking free becomes nearly impossible when the gang is not just a group but part of the family's identity. Communities also feel the long-term weight of these legacies. Businesses hesitate to invest in neighborhoods once controlled by gangs, fearing that violence may return at any moment. Residents live with memories of nights spent hiding from gunfire, of friends lost to wars they never chose to fight. Trust between neighbors is thin because the years of silence and fear built walls that no bulldozer can tear down. Even when the police declare victory, the people left behind know that the roots of the problem run deeper than a single raid or a single arrest. The gangs may change names, merge with others, or go underground, but the culture of fear they planted continues to grow quietly, feeding on poverty and hopelessness, until it finds new faces to carry it forward. What makes their legacy most frightening is their ability to adapt. Each time one gang is broken, another rises from its remains, learning from past mistakes and evolving to fit the time. The old methods of communication give way to encrypted apps, the old cash routes are replaced by digital laundering, and the younger generation grows more cunning by studying the failures of those before them. What outsiders see as destruction is, for the gangs, only transformation. Like shadows, they shift and reshape, never truly disappearing. This resilience ensures that fear remains a permanent fixture, a reminder that power built on violence may bend but rarely breaks. Yet within this dark legacy lies another quieter story. There are those who escape, those who turn their backs on the life and spend years trying to rebuild what was lost. They become mentors, activists, or silent survivors, carrying their past like chains but trying to keep others from following the same path. Their stories are often drowned out by the louder echoes of violence, but they serve as proof that the cycle, while nearly unbreakable, is not absolute. Still, for everyone who breaks free, dozens remain bound, trapped in a world where fear is inherited as easily as a last name. The true legacy of these gangs is not only the violence recorded in headlines or the trials held in courts, but the invisible wounds left behind in communities that still flinch at the sound of a car backfiring, still hesitate to trust their own neighbors, still wonder if the ghosts of the past are waiting to return. It is the knowledge that these groups, born from struggle and nurtured by fear, have created monsters that outlive their creators. Even when leaders die or disappear, the legend of their power remains, whispering to the next generation that the streets will always belong to those willing to claim them with blood. In this way, the gangs never truly die. They linger as a shadow, a warning, and a promise that fear itself can outlast everything else.